This is CBC Winnipeg News.
Good evening. Thanks for joining us tonight. Janet Stewart is off. Winnipeg's most iconic intersection has been closed to pedestrians for 45 years. Now, the mayor wants to reopen Portage in Main to foot traffic. The announcement comes nearly 6 years after a majority of Winnipeggers voted to keep the concrete barricades in place, but repairs are needed to keep the underground concourse open, and the mayor says fixing it would be too costly and disruptive. As CBC's Cameron McLean reports, the decision is reopening old divisions at City Hall.
When a local sports team wins, fans celebrate at Portage in Main. These are some of the only times Winnipeggers have seen people on foot in the city's iconic intersection. By summer 2025, that could change.
It's time to open Portage in Main to pedestrian traffic.
That announcement comes after a report says it would cost up to $73 million to repair the underground concourse. That repair could cause traffic disruptions for up to 5 years.
We can save Winnipeggers nearly half a decade of traffic chaos. We can save tens of millions of dollars in future construction costs, and we can ensure the successful launch of the new transit network.
One of the major problems is the waterproof membrane protecting the underground concourse. It's more than 40 years old and needs replacing. The mayor's plan would require shutting down the concourse. Property Chair Sherry Rowland says the city is reaching out to the businesses that operate there.
We care a lot about them. We care a lot about the empty spaces that we want to see filled above ground too.
While the mayor was flanked by several councillors supporting him, Councillor Russ Wyatt took to the podium to declare his opposition when City Hall staff cut his microphone.
These councillors up here who were just here before the citizens of Winnipeg have no right to have the arrogance to say that their opinion is better and more important than the citizens of Winnipeg.
Jeff Burwadi pushed for the 2018 plebiscite, but doesn't support a second one.
All of the scenarios had costs associated with them. And again, we don't have the costs that are involved with filling in the intersection and opening it up.
Council will vote on reopening Portage in Main at its meeting later this month. Cameron McLean, CBC News, Winnipeg.
The idea of opening Portage in Main to foot traffic has been divisive for both drivers and pedestrians for years. So what do people who use the intersection think? CBC's Jim Agapito made his way past the barricades to find out.
We can just walk across Portage in Main, it would be better. Why put all that money in if in 40 years you have to fix it again? You know, I think that Manitoba has beautiful weather, and I think having a chance to come across Portage in Main would be a better way of doing it.
I know how long it takes to cross Main. It takes a long time. Can you imagine the amount of people that are like crossing and the amount of cars that are going to get backed up? People are already complaining about downtown traffic. It's just going to make it so much worse.
More of a scatter crosswalk would be appropriate than a crosswalk that would hold up traffic, especially during busy times like Jets games and Gold Eyes games and other stuff like that.
Financially, like a $50 million difference is pretty big. So on that standpoint, definitely above ground.
I feel like just the time it would take for us to walk from where we work to, let's say, this intersection and then have to wait for the lights to change. I do really value the underground because it gives us a safer way to go across. We're, of course, shielded, protected from the elements that we experience here.
So we've heard from the politicians, we've heard from some of the people they represent. CBC's Bartley Kivas tells us what some of the property owners and downtown businesses think.
Portage in Main, the most famous intersection in Winnipeg. Pedestrians haven't been able to cross it since 1979, when barricades went up, forcing pedestrians through this concourse underground.
Ideas and people create capital.
Former Mayor Glenn Murray wanted to reopen up above. His successor, Sam Cates, put a stop to that, citing a 40-year deal with adjacent property owners to keep it closed. When Brian Bowman ran for mayor, he too pledged to open it up, but backed away when Winnipeggers said no in a 2018 plebiscite. The co-chair of the unsuccessful Vote Open campaign that year says the result would have been different if Winnipeggers knew then what they know today.
Winnipeggers like common sense, and Winnipeggers like saving money. And if we'd known, if everyone had known 6 years ago that it was $73 million to keep the barricades up, then I think it would have been a very different result.
6 years after the plebiscite, there's less traffic in downtown Winnipeg. The organization that speaks for downtown businesses says a majority of them want to see Portage and Main open up above ground.
Downtown has changed over the last number of years, and it really is about making sure that there is vibrancy on our streets.
There's also change among Portage and Main property owners. 3 out of 5 now support pedestrian crossings, including James Richardson and Sons, which owns the Richardson Building, and Harvard Developments, which owns 201 Portage Avenue.
We think that it's a critical component of activating and energizing the downtown core.
The Manitoba Métis Federation, which is converting the Bank of Montreal building into a heritage center, supports reopening as well.
We should be asking ourselves, how do we make downtown what it should be? How do we make downtown bustling? How do we make downtown a place you want to be? How do you make downtown safe?
Both Harvard and Richardson say they have yet to analyze the impact of a permanent closing of the underground crossing. Bell MTS, which owns a tower at the intersection, declined comment. CBC News did not hear back from Artis Real Estate Investment Trust, which owns Winnipeg Square and its adjoining office towers. Bart Lekivas, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Former Winnipeg Mayor Brian Bowman officially has a new job. He was sworn in as a judge for the Court of King's Bench in Manitoba after being appointed to the role in December. Bowman was called to the Manitoba Bar in 2000. He worked in private practice with 2 Winnipeg law firms from 2000 to 2014, specializing in the areas of privacy, access to information, and social media law. He set that career aside when he was elected mayor of Winnipeg in 2014. For families, finding a pediatrician in Winnipeg isn't as easy as it used to be. Doctors Manitoba says the province is dealing with a growing physician shortage. CBC's Alana Cole looks at how that's impacting care for babies and kids.
If you're having a hard time finding a pediatrician in Winnipeg, chances are you're not alone. This is pediatrician Dr. Ruth Grimes. She's been practicing in Manitoba for nearly 3 decades. Here's what she had to say.
Unless the family is already connected with a pediatrician because of previous siblings, I think the likelihood of finding a pediatrician for well, newborn, and child care is going to be slim to none, unless pediatricians happen to have openings as older patients graduate.
Grimes says traditionally, pediatricians here have provided primary care, including newborn checkup or for health concerns like a cold. But she says things are changing. She says in other parts of the country, pediatricians spend more time providing care and consulting for children with complex medical needs. And that's something she's also seen happen more here. Grimes says medical advancements mean more premature babies are surviving and children with complex medical issues are living longer. And there's other factors too. She says she started seeing more consults for mental health care when the COVID-19 pandemic hit. And she points to the retirement of at least 5 pediatricians in the last year. Grimes thinks family physicians and nurse practitioners need to be a part of a new pediatric primary care model in this province, but acknowledges family physicians are stretched thin too.
This is, I think, a natural evolution over time, but it is now creating a crisis, because we also know that there are not family physicians to take on any patients, regardless of the age.
The head of Doctors Manitoba says this is another symptom of the physician shortage here.
Pediatricians that are still doing primary care are overloaded, overworked, their patient rosters expanding. Family physicians that are doing it feel like they just can't take more.
Dr. Michael Borditsky says Doctors Manitoba continues to push for recruitment and retention plans for doctors. He also wants to assure families that family physicians are trained to provide care for kids and babies. And Doctors Manitoba says starting April 1st, a new funding model includes incentives for family physicians taking on babies and children. Grimes wants families to know pediatricians want to make sure every child has access to a pediatrician for specialized care if they need it. Alana Cole, CBC News, Winnipeg.
A Brandon police officer has been charged with assault and theft after a police watchdog investigation. Constable Darwin Raga allegedly assaulted 2 people last September while on duty. He allegedly slammed a man into the hood of a police cruiser and knocked a cell phone out of the hands of another man. Raga is also accused of stealing that phone. After looking into the altercation, the Independent Investigation Unit says charges should be laid. Raga has been charged with 2 counts of assault and 1 count of theft. That matter is now before the courts. Some foreign workers in Manitoba don't like the government's new policy on immigration. A recent change has the province choosing more applicants who already have family in the province. That means workers who don't have family ties here may be out of luck. CBC's Ian Fraze has more on how those workers are speaking out.
This address?
Yeah. Foreign workers preparing to deliver a letter to the immigration minister, the person they hope will keep them working in Manitoba. Jessica Tung says that dream is increasingly out of reach.
I have studied here and came so far, but now there is no option.
We are here in Winnipeg.
These newcomers represent a group that's hundreds strong. Foreign workers in Manitoba whose work permits are expiring. They say their chances at getting permanent residency in Manitoba are declining. Changes to the provincial nominee program are prioritizing applicants who already have family in Manitoba. Those applicants without family ties have a lower chance of being picked.
I'm hoping to stay here because of the cheap housing and because of the society here. It's so friendly here.
The provincial nominee program was changed to address Manitoba's declining retention rate of newcomers. Immigration Minister Malaya Marcelino wasn't available Friday for an interview, but her office says there's evidence people with a strong family connection are more likely to stay. Yapton Josie says they shouldn't be penalized because other foreign workers left.
We believe that it's not appropriate to judge someone that whether they're going to stay in Manitoba just on the basis of whether they have relatives here.
The group is proposing a few changes, like asking the province to conduct more draws that address labor shortages. It's a plea these newcomers are hand-delivering. Ian Fraze, CBC News, Winnipeg.
A Manitoba group is once again protesting the province's ban on homegrown cannabis and appealing an earlier court decision upholding the legislation. Federal legislation says Canadians can grow up to 4 cannabis plants at home, but provincial rules prohibit any growth of cannabis in a home. Toba Grown is a cannabis advocacy organization that wants to see that ban lifted, calling it unconstitutional. The group says it hopes the NDP will overturn the provincial legislation, but in the meantime, it's filing an appeal. Jesse Lavoie is the founder of Toba Grown.
We've offered to settle this in regards to us pulling our lawyers back in exchange for a mutually agreed upon timeline to drop the ban, because it has to go through legislation. However, that has not been heard to date, and unfortunately, Toba Grown as an organization, we've had to spend thousands more dollars to prepare our appeal documents, which we have submitted today.
Manitobans can be fined more than $2,500 for not following the ban. The Manitoba Museum is looking for a boost in provincial funding. Staff say it would help the museum expand its operations. It's still collecting pieces of provincial history, but says it doesn't have enough room for everything. CBC's Gavin Axelrod has more.
Artifacts like these should be in storage, but instead, they're sitting in this hallway. And that's because the Manitoba Museum is running out of space.
We have the highest standards of artifact preservation and storage that you can get, but these are at threat.
Artifacts sit in environmentally controlled storage, helping them avoid the elements and degradation.
We've been around now for over 50 years in this building. People have been very generous in their donations. We've been very discerning in what we've accepted, but now we have run out of space for collecting a lot of new items.
Some of what you see here in the gallery is only about 3% of the artifacts the museum has at its disposal.
We keep changing, we keep renewing, we keep bringing things out, and so you have to keep coming back if you want to see all 3 million artifacts and specimens.
CEO Dorota Blumczynska says the museum relies on its own revenue from admissions, gift shop, and programming, and funding from the province. But
for many, many years now, the pressure to increase that earned revenue has been going up, while that government support has stayed unchanged.
There's also staffing issues, and without the bodies or space, they have to look carefully at items coming in.
We have a temporary moratorium in place right now because we've, due to some staffing, we don't have the capacity at the moment to do all of the necessary paperwork to accession everything and to accept donations, and because we're running out of space.
Because of staff shortages, the museum has had to cut programming, which caught MGEU's attention. They represent 60 workers there.
So there's more the province can do. When funding's been flat for, I think, 16 of the last 18 years, it makes it very difficult to continue with programming.
The province wouldn't comment on potential funding for the museum until its upcoming budget is released, but says the NDP made promises to restore cuts to arts and culture funding during the election campaign.
This is made with a stingray skin.
Blumchinska says the museum would like to expand, so its collection space can last for the next 50 years. Gavin Axelrod, CBC News, Winnipeg.
A Brandon sports league that was sparked by a parent's love for their son with cerebral palsy wants to see more players on the rink. Volt Hockey started in 2022 and offers players with physical, intellectual, and mobility disabilities a chance to compete. It's the only team of its kind in Manitoba, but organizers hope to see the sport grow.
And there's a lack of sports with kids with disabilities get to play, so this is a very special sport to me. It is just like hockey, but there's a couple different things to it. For starters, it isn't actually on ice. It's in a gym and it's in a go-kart.
Volt hockey is an inclusive sport for people with physical, intellectual, and mobility disabilities. We have a son with cerebral palsy, and we've got twin boys, and very active in sports. One was always playing, and one was relegated to the sidelines. My wife and I felt that there was a void for kids like Xander, our son, to participate in sports. I think you'd be hard-pressed to find a more inclusive sport than Volt hockey, and really the only thing that operates that joystick is your thumb and your index fingers.
As you can see, it does played on different teams before, but this is an actual big team.
As a parent with a child with special needs, it's awesome to see that your son has a place to fit in, a sport they can participate in, and also relationships that they can build.
I started playing, I just feel like you began to really don't be afraid to try new things. And there's so many cool opportunities.
It's its own little community. The parents have a support system. The kids have a great support system. And at the end of the day, the Volt is the fun part, but we're also just trying to help the participants learn social skills and life skills and be part of a team and have fun like anybody else.
Riley Lachuk's here to update us on the weather. Riley, everyone's talking about this storm coming this weekend.
I was a very, very busy person in the newsroom today. I almost feel like I kind of have whiplash from the number of people that were up on either side of me going, what's with the snow? What's with the snow? So here we go. Let's get right into it.
Tell us what's up with the snow.
It's been a really busy day today with changing weather warnings. And so let's start with this area in blue, including the capital region and the city of Winnipeg itself. So this is a special weather statement. I have forecast 5 to 10 centimeters of snow for the Winnipeg region. Points to the south and to the east, expecting mainly a rain event with this low that is moving through. Maybe some freezing rain as well. We'll time that out. This area in the yellow shaded peach color, if you want to call it that, including Brandon, Dauphin, through the Interlake, expecting 25 to 40 centimeters of snow and wind gusts up to 80 kilometers an hour as we get through Sunday. We also still have a couple of snowfall warnings in northern Manitoba, Taduti Lake and Shamattawa, expecting 10 centimeters by the time we get through the night tonight. So looking at satellite radar, we did see a little bit of cloud cover start to roll into southern Manitoba today. Otherwise, a mix of sun and clouds. A very sloppy day across the city of Winnipeg today. If you're out driving, yeah, you need to stock up on your windshield washer fluid, but it's what's ahead over the next couple days that is really really going to mess things up here as we start the new work week. So starting Saturday, a mix of sun and clouds across southern Manitoba. Then by the time we get to supper time, we start to see the first band of this precipitation start to move in, mainly as a snow event across southern Manitoba, more like late afternoon snow for areas like Emerson across to Morden-Winkler into the Killarney region. So this is just sort of the first wave of this. If we back up a little bit here, you can start to see as we start Sunday morning, a little bit of mixing across the Red River Valley and into eastern Manitoba. This futurecast is hinting at some freezing rain in the Winnipeg region on the warm side of this low and snow back to the west, including into the Riding Mountain region. As we advance into the afternoon, futurecast is still picking this up as a rain-snow mix or some freezing rain, but areas to the south and to the east expecting mainly a rain event. And all of this will be dependent on the temperatures because especially in the Winnipeg region, we're going to be right on that freezing line as we get through the day on Sunday. And as forecast, this is mainly a snow event for the Interlake and into the western part of Manitoba. So we'll run the numbers for you now in terms of accumulation as we get through into Sunday. Futurecast still picking up about 5 to 10 centimeters for the Winnipeg region, the Red River Valley, but you can see up to 20 through the northern Interlake and even some higher accumulation along the western edge of Manitoba, including almost 30 centimeters in Dauphin. So yeah, we're in for a bit of a messy weekend province-wide across southern Manitoba, at least. -1 with a partly cloudy sky in Winnipeg right now, down to -11. Overnight tonight, northeast winds up to 30. Winds pick up as we get through the morning tomorrow, -6 by the time we get to the afternoon. Increasing cloud, and we start to see that snow building in as we get into Sunday, 5 to 10 centimeters with those very gusty northeast winds. So if you have travel plans Sunday into Monday across southern Manitoba, really think about postponing those because we're in for a very messy wintry mix, Emily.
Okay, good warning. Thanks, Riley.
You're welcome.
A day after former Prime Minister Brian Mulroney died, tributes are pouring in from current and former politicians of every stripe. We'll have that story after the break. You're watching CBC Winnipeg News. Tributes continue to come in after the death of Brian Mulroney, Canada's 18th Prime Minister. He died yesterday in Florida at the age of 84. Mulroney served as PM for 9 years, from the mid-1980s to the early 90s, and he's being widely remembered for making a lasting impact on both Canadian and international politics. CBC's Rafi Boudjikanian has more.
All over Parliament Hill, where Brian Mulroney called home for years, signs a nation is in mourning.
He changed this country. I mean, he was a transformative prime minister. We've not had many of those.
Rick Perkins saw this firsthand as a staffer in Mulroney's government.
The big issues that he tackled are still in place today, whether it's NAFTA, free trade, the things that he did on the world stage we all know about, from apartheid, and bringing the Commonwealth and Francophonie along to support his fight to free Nelson Mandela and end apartheid.
But in his last days, Mulroney was away from the limelight.
Brian had a fall and had to go to the hospital and passed away yesterday, late in the afternoon. So the wonderful thing is that all 4 of the children were able to be here in time to see their father.
Mulroney continued to be honored on the Hill today, with a book of condolences placed by his portrait as tributes poured in from opposition and government.
Well, there's certainly going to be many examples of disagreements that many New Democrats had with some of the policies. But today is a day to reflect on his contributions. And I can say with a lot of confidence he did have significant contributions to Canada, and there are things that we can agree with. His work on environmentalism, his work on fighting apartheid in South Africa.
The idea of service and devotion to country ran through everything he did. And I think in this time of a level of toxicity and personal attacks in politics that seems to have gotten worse over the past while, I think it's important to inspire ourselves and to take a moment to remember that everyone who serves does so out of a deep and abiding love for Canada.
The Prime Minister announced today Canadians will have their own opportunity to publicly mourn Mulroney, and the government is working with the family to arrange a state funeral soon. Rafi Boudjikanian, CBC News, Ottawa.
Thousands of mourners turned out for the funeral of Russian opposition politician Alexei Navalny today in Moscow. They gathered under heavy police presence and risked arrest to bid farewell to President Vladimir Putin's fiercest critic. CBC's Brier has this report.
Even this was a simple act of resistance. The Kremlin called Alexei Navalny's funeral unauthorized, but a few thousand turned out in spite of the risk. At times they chanted "No war" and "Free Russia."
I was dreaming of him to become our president, really, and it's a huge tragedy for me and for my people.
Inside the church, a much smaller group. Navalny's parents were there, but his wife and children couldn't be. The risk of them returning and being arrested like Navalny was too great. Among the crowd outside, Canada's ambassador to Russia, Sarah Taylor, who described Navalny as a voice of democracy. The Kremlin said Navalny died of natural causes. Few here believe that.
So they demonstrate to the whole world, we do what we want to do.
He was very brave man.
Boris Nadezhdin was recently banned from running in the presidential election, but unlike most major opposition figures, he's not in jail or in exile and was able to take part in the service today.
Me and Alexei Navalny, we have practically the same understanding of future of Russia. But now its situation is very bad for oppositional activity.
A few dozen people were detained, and there likely could be more arrests in the days ahead. As Navalny's coffin was lowered into the ground, the song "My Way" by Frank Sinatra was played, along with the theme from Terminator 2, his favorite film. As the police looked on, the crowd demanded to be let in to say their goodbyes, and eventually officers relented. People streamed in to leave flowers, to mourn a man and his dream for a different Russia. Brier Stewart, CBC News, London.
Pressure mounted today on Israel after yesterday's aid convoy deaths in Gaza and accusations the crowd was fired on by Israeli troops. More than 100 people died while seeking food. Hundreds more were injured. Germany today demanded Israel investigate. France called for an independent inquiry. And Saudi Arabia, South Africa, and Brazil expressed outrage. Israel says the convoy was swarmed and victims were trampled or run over. It does say some shots were fired. UN officials say the incident underlines Gaza is on the brink of famine. The U.S. said today it'll start airdropping aid into Gaza in the coming days. The Gaza catastrophe has another human statistic in the thousands besides the dead and the injured: orphans. The story is heartbreaking, and aid workers say its impact in the coming years is impossible to predict. CBC's Chris Brown reports.
There are few moments of fun these days for 12-year-old Alma. An Israeli airstrike in central Gaza in December killed 145 people, including her mother, father, and 4 siblings. She was the lone survivor. Alma told a videographer working for CBC News, "I want to go to my grandmother's, but we didn't because I remind her of what happened to my mom and dad." She adds, "I wish I had died with them." Alma is one of 17,000 children that UNICEF estimates have been orphaned or separated from their parents because of the war. Her emotional state is not good, said her uncle. She cries when she remembers her brothers and sisters and her mother and her father. It's hard to calm her down. The creation of so many fractured childhoods and parentless children has emerged as one of the most harrowing humanitarian challenges of the war. UNICEF's Tess Ingram is just back from spending a week near Rafah.
What's been happening in the Gaza Strip is daily incidences of repeated trauma that children aren't able to flee from. And that sort of impact is something that we don't yet fully understand.
9-year-old Yahya is receiving treatment for the wounds he suffered when Israeli bombs destroyed his home 2 weeks ago. His parents and 3 older siblings were all killed. "I wish I could see my mother's face again," he said. "I look on her phone, but there aren't any pictures. I can't see it." He told our videographer he wants to come to Canada, where he has an uncle, but leaving Gaza for anyone right now is very difficult. Dr. Khalil Al-Dagran has been treating Yahya and countless other children. There's been a huge spread of emotional problems, such as depression, anxiety, and isolation, he said. UNICEF says the impact of having so many children losing parents is difficult to know, but the trauma will be long-lasting. Chris Brown, CBC News, London.
There's growing concern over an increase in measles cases in parts of Canada. The 2-month tally is just shy of the dozen cases reported for all of 2023. It's happening amid worry over global outbreaks ahead of the busy March break travel season. CBC's Lauren Pelly has the latest.
A warning in Quebec after an unexplained case of measles.
We think that it's a beginning of a transmission inside the community.
Laval health officials say an unvaccinated individual somehow caught the virus, even though they hadn't traveled. They went on to visit a school, store, and 2 medical sites, all while highly contagious.
We are kind of worried about the evolution of measles inside our community.
Those fears follow reports of a man in his 30s living north of Toronto who also caught the virus but doesn't know how.
The unique thing about this case, and rather unfortunate thing, is that this case does not have any travel history or any history of exposure.
He had 2 doses of the measles vaccine and only mild illness.
We do know that people who are vaccinated can get a mild form of measles, and we think that they're much less likely to transmit it onwards. So that's certainly good news here.
There are only a handful of measles cases in Canada right now, but healthcare teams are bracing for more infections as global travel heats up.
South of the border, 35 cases in total have been identified across more than a dozen states. including an outbreak in Florida, a hotspot for March break vacations. This Montreal pediatric infectious disease specialist says high vaccination rates in Canada should keep the disease at bay, but
there can be certain communities or pockets of areas where the coverage rates are not high enough to stop secondary transmission.
Canada's top doctor told us Canadians should make sure their measles vaccinations are up to date.
If in doubt, I think one dose, getting a dose of vaccine prior to travel would be an important consideration.
And multiple experts agreed curbing the spread of measles is crucial given the risks. It can lead to serious complications, including blindness, brain swelling, pneumonia, even death. Lauren Pelly, CBC News, Toronto.
Get ready, curling fans. A Canadian tradition gets underway tonight in Regina as curling teams take to the ice at the Brier. We'll see what's at stake for this year's tournament after the break. A Canadian tradition begins this year's run tonight in Regina as curling teams take to the ice at the Brier. The national championship tournament dates back to 1927. CBC's Sam Sampson looks at what's in store for 2024.
Brad Gushue and Team Canada are going for the evasive three-peat. That's right, back-to-back. So Team Canada won last year in London, Ontario, and then of course they won the year before that in Lethbridge, Alberta. They're looking for another Brier victory here in Regina. Gushue, of course, is also looking for his 6th Brier win, maybe hoping for a little bit of deja vu considering he won his 2nd Brier win here in Regina back in 2018. And I asked him, you've been curling for 30 years, you're no rookie, of course, you've had so many titles, you've been to the Olympics. What do these kinds of historic titles mean? 6 potential Brier wins, a potential three-peat. How much does that weigh on you as you're preparing for a tournament like this? This is what he said.
Really doesn't matter because I think our legacy is kind of cemented, really, to be honest, with what we've achieved so far from the province that we live in winning Olympics, winning a bronze medal at the Olympics and 5 Briers. I don't think it's going to change too much now. It's just for that personal satisfaction of having that really cool moment of winning and the party after. So.
Look, as chill as he is, a three-peat would be no small feat. There was only one other team to ever do it in Brier history. That was Randy Ferbey from Edmonton back in 2001, 2002, and 2003. Now, there are so many talented and experienced athletes at this tournament, but people here in this province are keeping their eye, of course, on Team Saskatchewan. And Mike McEwen, who has, of course, he's from Brandon, Manitoba. He's played with Manitoba teams for years. Last year, he played with Ontario. Now he's wearing Saskatchewan colors. Residents here in this province are really hoping he can help the province break their more than 40-year drought at the Brier. Saskatchewan and PEI will have a draw here tonight. Team Canada and Gushue will face off against Nova Scotia. Other draws tonight here in Regina, we're looking at Northwest Territories against Quebec and Alberta's 2 teams out of 3. You've got Slachinski and Cooey here on the ice tonight. Shaping up overall to be a very exciting Brier. Sam Sampson, CBC News, Regina.
Riley Lachuk's back with another look at the forecast. Riley, a lot of wind about to blow in?
Probably a good weekend to stay in and watch some curling.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, we're in this storm system, Emily, is looking like it's going to bring some very strong winds to parts of southern Manitoba. So let's look at some of the forecast modeling in terms of our winds. So we did see a little bit of wind start to pick up as we got through the afternoon today, about 20 gusting 40 out of the northwest in Winnipeg, not so much back to the west, but as we move into Saturday here, you can start to see that these colors getting a little bit deeper into those purples, which is signifying stronger gusts. So we're looking at winds out of the northeast gusting to about 50 through the Red River Valley and along the Trans-Canada Highway. Keep in mind, this is right along the time when that snow will be starting in southern Manitoba. So driving Saturday night through Sunday into Sunday night, even early Monday morning could be tricky because look what happens as we get into Sunday. We start to see these blue colors, which is gusts in that 60, 70, 80 range as we get through the afternoon on Sunday. So we're looking at some very, very strong winds as we get through the weekend. Here's some of the readings right now. Temperatures hovering around the freezing mark across the capital region, at least +1 at the Forks, -4 in St. Laurent, and -4 as well in Melita. A little bit cooler in the Swan River Roblin region, temperatures around the -10 mark at the moment, and northern Manitoba also around -10. We did see a little bit of moderation in temperatures along far northern Manitoba with that low that brought some snow in. So we're not looking at temperatures, say, around -30, but temperatures at around -20. So here's your forecast as we get through the night tonight. At least we're looking at partly to mostly cloudy skies across northwestern Ontario. Temperatures around -9, -10 or so, -5 in the Fort Frances region. Mainly cloudy skies, some clear breaks, especially the further north you go tonight. Arberg and Peguis both at -16 this evening. Emerson at -8 overnight tonight. Steinbach at -10. Same for Westman, -12 in Melita. -13 in Brandon, approaching -20 through the Swan River region tonight, and that's the same as what we're looking at through the Pas OCN up to Flin Flon. Light snow ending in Lynn Lake, -25 degrees, another 5 to 10 coming for Churchill and Shamattawa along the Hudson Bay coast. Temperatures at -22 and minus 23. Into your Saturday, minus 19 for Churchill, minus 16 for Shamattawa, minus 14 for Thompson, minus 17 for Gillam with a mix of sun and clouds. As we look at southwestern Manitoba, this is where we start to see some of that snow moving through as we get into the day tomorrow. So through the evening hours for Melita at minus 6, through the late afternoon through Morden Winkler also at minus 6 for a forecast high. Late afternoon snow as well, starting for Emerson and Steinbach, more like early evening through Winnipeg and Pinawa. Temperatures in Winnipeg tomorrow at minus 6 degrees. And Emily, a little bit of snow moving into northwestern Ontario as we head through the evening as well. Temperatures around the freezing mark as we get through your Saturday. Your 7-day forecast is coming up.
Thank you, Riley.
You're welcome.
After the break, a new play at the Prairie Theatre Exchange looks at the crucial role of grave diggers during a pandemic in Sierra Leone. You're watching CBC Winnipeg News. A new play just opened up at the Prairie Theatre Exchange. It's called Diggers, and it's about two older grave diggers who have to train the new guy. It's set in Sierra Leone, and the town they serve is struck with a deadly disease, making their job crucial. Joining us now is Christian Paul. He's the actor who plays Solomon, the older veteran grave digger. Hi, Christian.
Hello. Was once the youngest, but now I'm the oldest.
Yeah. Tell us more about the play. What stands out to you the most about this production?
Well, you did a good job at describing the basic premise. It's a very colorful piece. I'm very happy to take part in it because it's a very colorful piece. Like you said, it's sort of like conceptually set in Sierra Leone. It's a sort of the spiritual setting for it. So it brings a lot of images to mind in terms of setting, in terms of where we are, what we're dealing with, the elements, and of course the deadly pandemic that's happening at the time.
Yeah, the play is about essential workers, grave diggers, and there's even a subtitle to Diggers that says, "In crisis, we reveal who we are." How might this play offer the audience new insight into the role of essential workers?
Oh my God. It's well, it's to me, it's the central kind of theme of the story. Obviously, before the COVID pandemic, it was very hard for most of the world to understand what it was like to experience a pandemic. It was usually relegated to obscure parts of Africa or Asia. But now with with COVID, I think we all became much more aware of what essential workers have to go through. And this play is a very good kind of marker of that relationship between essential workers and their community. And to me, a central part of what this play talks about is what happens when you are rejected by the community that you are helping.
And music plays a key role in the play. How important is music to diggers?
Yeah, music is very important. It's one of the devices, one of the colors that are used to kind of depict our world.
Yeah, and it's, of course, co-produced by the Black Theatre Workshop in Montreal. How important is that group for Black theatre in Canada?
Yeah, Black Theatre Workshop, I've been working for them on and off for more than 20 years. They're a very important part of the theatre community in Canada, the oldest Black theatre in Canada. So I think the constant putting on of works by emerging playwrights and playwrights that are sort of a little more veteran, such as Donna Michelle St. Bernard, has been an extremely valuable cultural kind of product for Canadian theatre and arts in general.
And just before you go, what have you learned as an actor playing Solomon in Diggers?
Oh my God, so many things, so many things. Well, it was my first time on stage in about 8 years, so I had to kind of rekindle my sort of finding my bearings on stage. So for me, that was one of the things that was fun. I had to basically really kind of dig into the relationships with the characters. I had to learn so many things. It's hard to
sum up.
Yeah, it's hard to sum up, but it's definitely it's something that I'm discovering every day, pretty much.
Okay, well, we'll have to come discover it along with you by going out to see Diggers at Prairie Theatre Exchange. Thank you so much for joining us, Christian.
Thank you so much, and have a wonderful day.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Yay! Aww. After the break, some special news about one of our own here at CBC Manitoba, and Riley Lachak will be back with the 7-day forecast. Stay with us.
All right, let's have a look at your day planner for your Saturday now. So we're starting at minus 10 first thing in the morning. Northeast winds 15, gusting 30. Then we start to see things picking up as that area of low pressure moves in. Minus 8 by noon with some snow starting through the late afternoon and minus 6 degrees. So looking at your 7-day forecast now, yeah, we do have weather statements and winter storm watches in place for the bulk of southern Manitoba for this system moving in Sunday. Right now, I still have 5 to 10 centimeters in the forecast for Winnipeg with a high of -1, which means that we could see some freezing rain or some rain, temperature dependent, because we're right on freezing there. Periods of snow lingering through Monday, but northeast winds gusting to 60 and 50 through Monday, then dropping to -11 as a cold front pushes through for Tuesday. A chance of flurries in the morning on Wednesday, and -3s and -4s on the way for Friday with sunny skies. Well, our daily lift tonight is about one of our own, and our CBC family, Emily, is about to grow by 1.
That's tonight's daily lift.
We love you, and we're happy to see you in a year.
Thank you so much. I love you folks.
And you have a new adventure.
I do.
Yeah. And look how mean we are. The show's already done.
Today we said goodbye for now to our own Marjorie Dowhouse as she begins her maternity leave. She and her husband Ian will soon welcome their first child.
It was not without tears on Radio Noon today and a lot of hugs, of course, in our newsroom. Marge, we're so happy, of course, for you and Ian, and we cannot wait to meet your own little bundle of joy. And I will note the first time that I think I cried on the air today. I held it together till Marge started crying.
It just shows you how much Marjorie means to us. Hope you have a great weekend.
Have a great weekend, everyone.